I've got some very confronting news to share. Now, I do recommend that you're sitting down for this, because this is big. This might shatter a few bubbles. It may make you question everything that you've ever thought you've known. But if you're ready for it, I'm going to say it. IGN are liars. They're corrupt. They don't tell the truth. All they care about is their advertising dollars. They don't care about games. They don't care about gamers. They'll always sell us down the river. And now they've been exposed, truly exposed. They've got nowhere to hide. Because not long ago, they put out their Dragon Age the Veilguard review. And you might remember a few weeks ago, just before the Veilguard came out, felt like a bit of a psyop or something. All at once, despite everyone's concerns about the quality of this game, you had 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s from all these mainstream reviewers, IGN, Eurogamer, many others. And people were scratching their heads. How can this be? The game looks awful. Soon after it came out, it played awful. Very few people like it. There is not one person in existence who enjoyed it who doesn't also have pronouns in their bio. You can connect the dots. But IGN's glowing review, which resulted in a 9 out of 10, where the reviewer described it as amazing. Dragon Age the Veilguard refreshes and reinvigorates this storied series with enjoyable action combat, a fantastic cast of companions, and moving character writing. So again, 9 out of 10, and all the comments were pretty much mocking them, like, we can use our eyes and ears. We know this is never, in no universe is this a 9 out of 10. Now, a couple of weeks pass, and you would think IGN would stand by this. You and your fellow corrupt reviewers implied that because it's so progressive, so diverse, doesn't matter if this game, this series has now taken a nosedive in the gameplay department when it comes to combat, which is now middling and boring, the writing, which has hit rock bottom. That doesn't matter, because it's changing the world, pushing these progressive values. That makes it amazing. So you'd think IGN would have stood by this, but they haven't. Now that they've seen the writing on the wall, now that we've seen that the Veilguard is about to hit mixed reviews on Steam, I think it's at 72% positive. Once it goes below 70, it turns yellow, it turns mixed, which BioWare certainly don't want. But that is obviously telling the IGNs of the world that people do not like this game. The consensus is clear. It's at best middling. So IGN, of course, who, we care so much about our integrity, our credibility, what are we going to do? So now they're backpedaling. Even though they gave the name a 9, amazing, now they're putting out articles like this. Dragon Age the Veilguard is at war with itself. The sequel to Inquisition's Dreadwolf story is trapped in an action game with no interest in the past. That's a little bit weird. I thought it was amazing. It was a Game of the Year contender. Now it's at war with itself. It's got a few problems. It's a bit rough around the edges. Now, to be fair, this is a different writer, but I'm pretty sure that when BioWare were giving out review copies for the Veilguard, you would only get one if you could prove that you had pronouns in your bio. You had to demonstrate, show that you were an ally to the cause. Otherwise, you don't get one, because they know if anyone remotely normal reviews the game, they'd expose it for being crap. We saw that when a few reviewers, like SkillUp, for instance, slipped through the cracks and gave an honest, a scathing review. So BioWare couldn't have too much of that. But it seems like what's happened is, before the Veilguard came out, reviews were very much curated, so they could trick normies, people who, they're not following gaming news, they just see, hey, there's a new Dragon Age entry, I haven't played one for 15, 20 years, this will be a nostalgia trip. I'll just quickly check if the reviews are decent. Oh, look, IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. Amazing, I'm going to buy the game. Those were the sorts of sales that BioWare needed at launch. They needed the IGNs of the world to play along, because if there was remotely any honesty, then no one would have bought the game. I reckon deep down, anyone who bought the Veilguard with optimism, they'd happily return it and get a refund if they could. Most people saying, yeah, it's all right, I don't mind it. They're just coping, they're just pretending because they've wasted their money and they're nostalgic about the franchise. But IGN tried to trick people, and now they're attempting, no, here's our true thoughts. We're going to be honest with you guys. Come on, visit our website. We need those advertising dollars. And that's all this is. A sad attempt from IGN to be honest after the fact, after they've already led people astray. They wouldn't have allowed a negative article about the Veilguard before it actually came out. It's fine now after most people have already bought it. But the article reads, there's a line in our Dragon Age the Veilguard review that has stuck with me throughout my own playthrough. It's hilarious that no one ever says the word Veilguard out loud across the 100 hours I played of this dialogue-packed campaign, exposing a last-minute marketing pivot for what it was. So basically admitting all the marketing that BioWare did for the Veilguard was fake and phony. They rebranded the game at the last minute, probably because they convinced people for years that this is going to be the game about the Dreadwolf, about Solus. Oh, actually, no, we've actually sidelined that character. Probably because for a lot of the Veilguard's development, it was actually a live service, meaning there wouldn't have been that much story. And that's probably why a lot of your choices don't carry over either. It was just too late in development that they switched from live service to single player, and that's why it feels like a spin-off, basically. Even the most positive people on the Veilguard admit it feels like a spin-off. And that's what this article basically says. It's not really Dragon Age. It's a lot of subtle shitting on the game. It's actually not that good, but we're still leaving our 9 out of 10 review out there for some reason. They mention here, the Veilguard crew all appear to be likable people, but it feels as if I'm being blocked from forging true bonds with them. So basically just admitting the writing's bad. There's nothing good about the writing, but they can never just say that. It's always going to be this pretentious 1,000-word article going on to all these random details no one cares about. That's why these people are losing their jobs, because no one wants to read this. Just come out with your honest take. You didn't like the game. It wasn't very good. We don't need you to relate every misgiving that you have with the game back to something that happened in your personal life. That's what these writers always seem to do. Like, come on, you didn't like the game. It's painfully obvious, and it's extremely obvious from this last bit here, where he says, the overall result is that Dragon Age the Veilguard isn't the golden era BioWare game that I had hoped it would be. Torn between continuing its traditional role-playing legacy and starting afresh as a modern action RPG, the end result is an awkward sequel trapped in a cage made of reboot ideas. After years and years of faltered steps, I understand why BioWare landed on this particular, very mainstream AAA formula. But I wish it had been inspired by the undying mass popularity of The Witcher 3, a full-on nerdy RPG rather than veer closer to Sony's palatable RPG-ish approach for modern God of War. It's kind of a weird example. Like, I enjoyed The Witcher 3. I mean, it does have some great quests, some great story, but it's a pretty action-orientated game as well. It's just that the content in the game is actually good, which is the opposite for the Veilguard, where they drop the ball on literally everything. No one can ever tell me, like, what are the positives of this game? It's basically just coping. It's not as bad as some people say. You know, it's all right. You can kill an afternoon with it. That's all they say. Whereas with The Witcher 3, yes, it abandons some of the CRPG stuff from, like, the very first Witcher game, but it seems to get everything else right. It does a lot of good things. So a weird example to use. And then he ends with, but that ill-defined shape is often what uneasy development cycles get you. Thankfully, the Veilguard's launch has seemingly gone well for EA and BioWare, despite there being zero evidence of that. In fact, if it was actually a success, if there was any metric that they could use, they'd come out and say, look at this record that the Veilguard broke. They've been radio silent. The game hasn't done that well. Which hopefully means Dragon Age will continue. Let's just hope next time it's not just the name that's got a bit of Baldur's Gate in it. So my question then is, why is this article now doing the rounds? There's actually some honesty, but the IGN final verdict, their review, is 9 out of 10, because this most recent article reads like a 4 or a 5 out of 10, but it's got no score attached. Because the truth is, all you care about is sucking up to the publishers. You don't want to rock the boat, trouble the waters, because, oh no, advertising dollars might be at risk. And, I mean, it's painfully obvious. This has been happening for years. But it just seems like there's always this section of the gaming community where no matter how many times this happens, the mainstream reviewers prove they're corrupt and you just shouldn't be listening to them. But you'll still get people who go, look at the high Metacritic score. Everyone said this game would suck. Clearly they were lying because Eurogamer is giving it a 5 out of 5 or whatever. So I'm going to trust that. Seems to happen every time. Like the reviews, the mainstream reviews should have been totally discarded immediately. And I mean, the trend does seem to be shifting, because you had some copers with the Veilguard who was saying, oh, why are people trusting SkillUp's review, his one review, when there's all these other great ones? Well, the truth is, the reason why is because all of these mainstream reviewers, their opinion is worth squat. It literally doesn't matter anymore and means nothing in comparison to a reviewer who's maybe built up some integrity. Even the average user review has more credibility than an IGN review. We can see that here. And I just want to end on this. Something slightly different. But you may remember Jim Sterling, or as he goes by now, Jim Stephanie Sterling or something like that. And little nostalgic seeing this person. I remember like 10 years ago thinking, oh, this guy's all right. He puts his middle finger up to the system. He's not getting sucked in by corrupt practices in the game industry. He's had a bit of a dark turn. He's had a bit of a tumble, a bit of a fall from grace, but I'll let you go down that rabbit hole. Now, he's put out a video where he basically tries to mock anyone who suggests that the Veilguard is trying to push political agendas down people's throats. Now, I find this interesting because Jim, 10 years ago, seemed kinda normal, but I guess, for Jim. And then over the years, as games have become more and more so propaganda, now look at him. Look what he's turned into. That's what happens if you allow the game industry to continue in this direction. So I'm pleased that Jim can be a living example of this, and that's why games need to get back to normal. But that's not all, because he's also been melting down a little bit, where we've got Commander Sterling here on Blue Sky, the Twitter ripoff, and he's not happy about people's criticisms of the Veilguard. And he's come out with this. He says, nerdsies are still pretending that BioWare had better writing before Veilguard. LOL. The only thing I agree on is it's less gritty, the tones are lighter, but honestly it suits BioWare's writing better. Emmerich's arc villain wouldn't fit an older Dragon Age. I'm so glad she fits this one though. She's a mad scientist death mage who looks and acts like a comic book supervillain and chews scenery like it's bubblegum. Her disembodied hand fucking clicks and points at her. Gritty? No. Fun as fuck? Yes. I say this as someone with no major love of BioWare. I've been cringing at their writing for half my life. They've always been great at moments, one-liners, and at least a few characters per game. This is still true as of Veilguard. Bad writing is a cowardly way of masking DEI. Now, the first thing, even before this person became Stephanie Sterling, before all of that, he gave Fallout 4 a 10 out of 10. A 10 out of 10. Are you going to trust anyone's opinions on judging the quality of RPGs when he was giving Fallout 4 a 10 out of 10? And it's kind of funny because after the 76 debacle, he tried to backtrack and say, oh, Bethesda have always been ordinary. They've always had games full of problems. Oh, but you were giving their games 10 out of 10 when it was the right thing to do because they were beloved in the industry. Get the fuck out of here. Now, all that aside, I think we know what's going on here. Because you wear a wig and the game totally caters to you, it's incredible, it's a 10 out of 10, amazing. And if anyone dares question it, they're cowards. They're just masking their hatred of DEI. Oh, there's no bad writing to be found here. You're the problem. Doesn't matter that even fans of the game, very optimistic fans, who were dismissing a lot of the criticisms that people had before launch about the vibe of the game and how it looked like a Fortnite spin-off or something, all of those people have basically come out and admitted, yeah, it's sort of lacking what previous Dragon Age games had. This person is just lying to themselves because they've changed. They used to seem to appreciate decent games. Now they don't care about games. Everything comes back to their identity. And that's what went on with the mainstream reviews. Everyone who reviewed it, pronouns in their bio, that takes precedence, priority, over actually just reviewing the quality of the game. Jim doesn't care anymore. Stephanie Sterling doesn't care about games. They're the ones who are actually obsessed with politics. Everyone else just wants to get back to normal. Hopefully we will soon. We've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coming out next year. I can't wait. Hopefully that gets us back to some normalcy. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.